Okay. So who's starting it off? You or me?
I
think maybe you.
Maybe me. Welcome back to Unlocked, guys. I'm so excited. Actually, I say that every time. I'm going to stop saying that. I mean, I am excited for today, but we've got Erin on today, who is my producer, best friend. She's also the founder of the Cast Collective, which is here in Nashville, which is amazing. They've got a huge sign of my face out front right now. I feel honored.
I'll bring that out at the end.
It's great. So I'm excited for today. And today's episode's a little different because we wanted to do like an update on everything that's going on. And there's really no one I trust more to do it with or feel comfortable with than you. So,
well, I'll take that. We spend a lot of time around each other right now. And a lot of those times we have to have deep conversations, whether we want to or not.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense.
And we're really the only two people that can be like, kind of, I have attitude with, but then like, just shut it off. You know what?
Okay, I wasn't, everything always goes out of order no matter like what I plan, which I really didn't over plan on this. I just had some stuff written down, but it's funny you brought that up because I was talking to Sean, who's my brother and one of your other producers, and for people that don't know, and I was like, what do you call like Savannah and my relationship?
Yeah.
And I'm like, radical candor. That's like not really that well known of a phrase, but that's kind of what it is. Cause it's basically like this, Sean, tell me if I'm messing this up. Like this radical, like honesty.
Oh,
but you
have extreme.
But you, in order for that to work, you have to know that the other one cares.
Yeah.
So like it only functions well if you're like, you know, I have your best intention at heart.
Oh, 100%.
So if I'm like, hey, you push the freaking line and you shouldn't have said that to whether to me or somebody else, which you almost never say anything to me. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's because you know that there's like only genuine care at the bottom of that.
Exactly. There's so much love and care that you know it's coming from a place
that means
of protection.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So
we're kind of going to treat this, it's almost like a replacement for one of your monologue episodes, which have been, I mean, some of your most highly viewed episodes, so pressure's not on or anything. But I think those were like really well received because you have literally no choice but to be authentic and genuine in those moments because...
You and me. I always look. I just make sure one of the kids aren't dying.
Yeah, no kids are dying. Like those episodes were so important because especially when you're alone, you really have no option but to just lay it out there.
Yeah.
Like what are you going to talk about for an hour if you're not talking about real stuff?
Exactly.
So
you can't really fake it.
No, you can't. And I mean, hopefully, I think that's maybe why you asked me to do it too, is because you knew you wouldn't really be able to fake it here. I think that's kind of like our friendship is, of course, I'm never going to walk you into something that you don't want to say, but I do think that there's an authenticity with the people that are closest to you. The same reason you started with your friends and family when you started the podcast.
Oh, without a doubt. And too, at this point, nothing is off limits. At this point.
You just gave up.
Yeah, I just gave up. I mean, nothing's off limits. And even on my... Wow.
I feel personally offended by those cars. Is that
I
hot
know.
take?
It really is.
I feel like they're doing it to me.
It's and too, are you that small? But whatever. Anyways.
Probably.
Oh gosh. What was I saying?
You were saying...
Oh yeah, nothing's off limits. And even on Instagram, I put a question box up for people to ask questions, and I said nothing was off limits because there truly is nothing off limits. I mean, I may not like your question, you may not like my answer, but you're getting an answer
away from it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So for you right now, because I mean we could start in like a million different places, but you have a ton of responsibility, which everybody already knows that, and we'll get people caught up on kind of what's going on with you, but then take it a little bit deeper than that. Mm-hmm. So tell us what I don't think people really know. I forget what I know that other people don't. So tell people what your week to week looks like right now. They're not all of your weeks are the same, but they do all have a lot in common, which is a ton of traveling, not fun trips.
No.
I mean, fun because you get to see the people that you love, but not fun based on the circumstances.
No.
And then your day to day. So you just tell us like what a week looks like.
Yeah. So I would say starting on Mondays, obviously I've got Chloe and Grayson. Grayson is homeschooled. Chloe's in school. So I get up in the mornings, put her bagel in the toaster. She's very routine, so she likes the same thing. So I put her bagel in the toaster, go wake her up at about 6:45, get her ready for school. We do the whole routine, make her lunch, take her to school, and then I go on about my day of everything that I have to do, whether it's podcasting, attorneys, more meetings, business ventures, and then pick her up from school. Certain days she has therapy, take her to therapy, go home, make dinner, do the whole thing. And then depending on whether we go and visit mom or dad,
which is every week it's somebody.
So every weekend it's someone. And I say, like, I don't know why it just clicked, but this morning I was talking on the phone to one of mom's friends, and I was like, if this, like, I imagine this is what having divorced parents feels like. Like with having to, but in a way, like of having to figure out, like, who am I going to go see this weekend? Or who, like,
there probably are some similarities.
Yeah, like just like bouncing back and forth. And that's the hard part of figuring out, like, all right, who am I going to go see? Because also going to see dad is a lot more.
He's a lot further away.
Yeah, he's a lot further away. With mom, I can go. So like normally with mom, I'll leave at like 6 a.m., drive to Kentucky, see her, then drive home. With dad, it's a 7-hour drive. So I will normally pick Chloe up from school on Fridays, start driving. We'll get there at about like midnight. And then we're at dad's facility by 8 a.m. to visit him from 8 to 3, do the same thing Sunday, and then drive home. So then we get home Sunday night at like 9 o'clock, and then we start the week over again.
I mean, it's just, I'll talk to you even when, we'll do this later, but even when you're not getting delayed on Southwest flights until.
Yes. I was up 26 hours.
And honestly, let's not even, like, we don't even need to defend your mood, because I will tell you when you're doing something wrong. I heard the story right after it happened, before the internet was taken. Savannah broke the internet in a much different way than Kim Kardashian.
Yes. Yes.
Less about the sex appeal and more about,
let's just say with the whole Southwest thing. So for people that are not familiar, first off, I have gained tons of followers on Instagram. So thank you guys. I love you. I appreciate it.
Cut that part.
But this whole Southwest debacle. So last, I guess, what day are we? Last week.
It's Monday.
Yeah. So I guess
it Friday?
I had to go to New York. Was it Thursday?
Yeah.
Yeah, Thursday. And I left my house at 5 a.m. Before I left my house, I made Chloe's lunch. So her lunch was ready for my grandmother to take her to school. So I'd made her lunch, got everything ready, left, and I was literally going for business meetings all day in New York City, then flying right back home so I could be home by 8:30 at night to put Chloe to bed and take her to school the next morning.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, exactly. Shocker. And so I had my meetings. It was a really long day. Things were good. And then I get to the airport and I go to get on the flight, and the attendant was immediately rude. I don't know if it's because, and of course, all these articles are that I'm this entitled, self-absorbed, whatever. Everyone has their opinions. We've all got them. But so not the truth. Like I was dressed because I had come from meetings. I had my carry-on bag, which was a more luxurious carry-on bag, if you want to say.
Not purchased within the last year, by the way.
Exactly. Not purchased within the last year. But I went to get on the flight, and he immediately looks at me and goes, "You'll have to check that bag." I was like, and I just, like, his tone and attitude was immediately angry. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, I didn't check it on the way here. So I would really like to see if there's room for it. And he goes, "That's not how it's going to work." I was like, okay. And I was like, well, then why don't we put a tag on it as if I'm going to check it?
This is all reasonable so far.
Yeah. I was like, let me put a tag on it as if I'm going to check the bag. And if there's not room for it, then we'll just check it. "Ma'am, you won't be flying on this flight if that's how you want to do it." And I was like, okay. Yeah. All right. And so I walked down the jet bridge, and as I'm walking down, the pilot.
With your bag.
With my bag, yes.
But you put a tag on it.
There was a tag on it. And then this attendant, just to like prove a point, just to prove like a little bit of power, he comes down the jet bridge and tries to take my bag. And the pilot that was standing next to me, he was just sparking conversation.
Come through, by the way.
Come through. You haven't come through yet, but come through. But anyways, so the pilot and I were talking, and super, super nice guy. And the attendant comes up to try to take my bag, and the pilot goes, hey man, you know, I'll find a place for her bag. It's not a big deal. And the attendant literally was like this close to the pilot's face and goes, no, you won't. Stay out of it. And at that point, I mean, granted, I was already on edge. I'd been up for almost 24 hours, like whatever. It was just a tough, rough.
Not your most patient self, but like not you're
hostile.
Not like, yeah, you're not going off.
No, I'm not going off. I'm not hostile. Maybe I wasn't my most patient self.
I've traveled with you before. I mean, I know what it's like.
Yeah.
You're not nasty to people.
No, not at all. And so when he said that to the pilot, though, something in me just flipped because I'm like, this is a guy responsible for like the safety of everyone. And you're going to have that much disrespect to tell him to stay out of it. So that is when I had choice words. And I said, dude, come on. There's no need to be an asshole. That's
the extent of what you said.
That's all I said.
Yeah.
I said there was no need to be an asshole. And at that point, oh gosh, you would have thought I would have like threatened to bomb the place. Like he was not having it. He was like, ma'am, you will, or what did he say? I was like, so there's no need to be an asshole. And he goes, you're off. Let's go.
So what I'm trying to picture, which is like, first of all, you called me like hysterical. Okay, you weren't laughing at the situation, but you were laughing because you had to, because you really needed to be back. Now you're not only like not getting home on time, you're laying over in Baltimore.
Yes.
And then coming home at like 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
But what I keep laughing about, like I've found myself hysterically, like I was crying when we got off the phone because all I can picture is like you walking off the plane and back up the jet bridge because I know you board relatively early because you normally check in on time.
Well, I will say I did board late. So that is where
so you didn't have as many
accurate.
People. Okay, so that makes the baggage thing more understandable.
Yeah.
But that makes me sadder because I was picturing you having to walk past 150 people down the jet bridge. So how many would you say?
The jet bridge was full.
Okay. The jet bridge was full.
The jet bridge was full.
What were people like doing?
People, I think, were just kind of shocked. And then the man aggressively grabbed the woman's bag behind me. And she was like...
So it wasn't just you?
No. He aggressively grabbed her bag behind me. And she was like taken back. And the pilot literally said to me, dude, when they have this kind of like, when they have this power, they kind of just run everything.
Yeah.
And I told the attendant, I was like, you know what? We all have tough days. Clearly you're in a mood. Clearly I'm in a mood. I apologize. I should not have called you an asshole. Let's check my bag
and call it a day.
Nope. You're off this flight. You will not be flying. He was like, do I need to have whatever police come and get you? And I was like, please do, sir. Support for today's episode comes from Honeylove. The reviews are in, and let's just say that Honeylove came out on top for best wedding day shapewear. With wedding season upon us, this is the ad you've all been waiting for. Whether you're a bride or normally a guest like me, or looking for an everyday fit, Honeylove is your go-to for all things shapewear. Honeylove has revolutionized compression technology, so you no longer have to feel like you're suffocating while wearing effective shapewear. I know for me, I've worn some shapewear and I literally cannot breathe. It is so uncomfortable, and that's where Honeylove has definitely changed the game. Their technology is absolutely amazing, and you will immediately feel and see the difference. If you guys don't know, I am obsessed with bodysuits, and they also have bodysuits with 360-degree bonded compression that smooths your tummy and hips, built-in bust support, lifts without underwire, and it's shapewear that's comfortable. Yep, you heard that right. Comfortable shapewear. So with that being said, I have an exclusive offer just for my listeners. You can get 20% off your entire order with code UNLOCKED20 at honeylove.com. Yep, you heard that right. It's exclusive just for my listeners. Get 20% off your entire order with my code UNLOCKED20 at honeylove.com. Support our show and check them out at honeylove.com and use the code UNLOCKED20. Today's episode of Unlocked is sponsored by BetterHelp. You guys know I've spoken about BetterHelp before, and I am absolutely obsessed. BetterHelp makes therapy so easy. It's so easy to get caught up in what everyone else needs from you. You never seem to take a moment to think about what you need for yourself. I am so guilty of that. Right now in my life, I am a doer. I'm always looking to satisfy everyone else's needs, and at the end of the night, I find myself wondering and asking myself, what about me? And that's where BetterHelp has come into play, because I can easily access a therapist that helps me to understand my own thoughts and feelings. I have benefited from therapy in so many different ways. So whether you've been in therapy yet or not, I highly suggest you give it a try. And if you're thinking about giving it a try, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time with no additional charge. So find more balance with BetterHelp and visit betterhelp.com/Savannah today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Savannah for 10% off your first month. Yeah, so then I got off the flight and I told them and then the woman was like, hey, let me get his side of the story and your side of the story. I was like, I would appreciate if we could get the factual story together. Like not his side, her side.
Maybe the pilot.
Yeah. Like maybe get the pilot story.
And the pilot's number.
Yeah. His name, number, that would be great. And like they were so insistent on having two separate sides to the story, and that didn't work for me because
who's gonna win the Southwest side of the story? You or the Southwest attendant? Well, and normally you haven't been winning a lot lately in general. So
no. I mean, clearly Southwest won because I was on a delayed connecting flight. But it was just the whole thing. I think, and the most disturbing part about it was I said, you know what, I have to get home to a 10-year-old. Like my 78-year-old grandmother's waiting on me to get home to take over. Like I have to get home to my 10-year-old. And the guy looks at me and goes, don't care. That was what was the most infuriating thing that led me to call him an asshole again. So granted, could I have used a little classier language? Sure.
What would you have used? Like, you probably can't even think of anything.
Nah, I would have called him an asshole still.
Okay.
But the whole thing, it was just, and the fact that this is like a news headline. Also, too, I tried to make a joke out of it at the end of the day by just being like, you know what?
The hot pilot was hot, though.
Yeah, the hot pilot stood up for me. Thank you for that. Holler. So the whole thing was just absolutely insane. I do not think I'm better than anyone else. I do not think I'm better than to not have to check my bags. All I asked was, let me see if there's room, because we all been on a plane before. Some people just don't play Tetris that well, and there's a lot of wasted
toxic trait being, I just cut you off. I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine.
But our toxic trait, I have the same one, is like, if you tell me there's not room for something, I see it not as a like barrier, but as a challenge.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I feel like there is indeed room, and I would like to show you where that room exists. And so
exactly.
I might have been more likely, admittedly, to get away with it than you, because it's you. I mean, he might have had, it sounds like he had a vendetta for more than one person.
Yeah, something
wasn't
not,
just you.
No, something was not going right that day. I don't know. But again, should I have called him an asshole? Probably could have steered away from that. But it is what it is. Everyone has tough days. I don't think I'm better than anyone else than to have to check a bag. So let's take that narrative out of the picture. And Southwest,
fucking fly. We got to get that.
Okay.
That's not a good look for the company.
So at the end of the day, Southwest, you won. You won because I ended up on a connecting flight and I didn't get home till 3 a.m.
Had you ever been to Baltimore though?
I have. When Mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. That's where she had her surgery.
Okay. Well,
I know.
the story gets darker.
Dun, dun.
I mean, you are literally the queen of using humor to get through things, which
And
is
that's
like,
the
what
thing.
else are you going to do?
And in moments like this, you have to use humor to get through things. So that's the Southwest saga. And that's my story. And hot flight attendant. No, but
It's
I
not
keep calling you a flight attendant. I'm so sorry, dude. No,
Well,
you're the pilot.
like he was
sorry.
a pilot.
Hot flight.
What is happening?
I don't know what is happening today. But pilot, you were very attractive and you were very kind for standing up for me. So for that, I'm
We didn't
grateful.
catch his name.
I didn't catch his name. No, I didn't catch his name. It was a very sad moment. I wonder if there's a way I can find his name.
I feel like if he should have found you by now.
Okay, well,
I know.
maybe the feelings aren't mutual, but he seemed to be interested.
If we take it from Southwest so we talked about like your week to week, what it looks like. And I think that, well, let's stay on a lighter note for a second. Your dad.
Yes.
You just saw him.
Yes.
What's the update with Todd? How's he doing? Do you have any funny Todd stories? Because every time you come back from visiting him, I'm like on the floor laughing. So can you give us some updates? They don't all have to be funny, but like what's going on with them and some funny stuff.
I think it's so hard because I've been so out there about giving updates about them. And now I'm trying to find a more effective way to give updates and not, because
that's easier for you, or that's like better for everybody?
I think it's just better for the situation because obviously there are people out here that want to monetize off of their hardships, and it's just not okay. I also don't want to give too much information that they're not comfortable with or that's going to make their life harder in there.
Right.
Which is really difficult, trying to find that fine line and trying to find just a more effective way to communicate things, because it's not about dogging the system at all, really. It's just about wanting change for the system in its entirety.
Right.
So I think after visiting Dad, now it was the first time I had seen him in a month because of COVID.
Yeah, they locked the prison down, right?
Yep, everything was on lockdown because of COVID, and it's so sad because the CARES Act is now ending May 11th. It's over, which the CARES Act does protect a lot of within the CARES Act, our federal inmates on just COVID outbreaks and early release stuff, if based off your medical history, all kinds of different things. And so how it's ending when COVID is still running so rampant is so alarming to me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see him in a month, but seeing him was like the greatest thing ever. It's just like it gives you enough energy and strength to like get through the next few weeks. Mm-hmm. So seeing him though, we sat, we laughed, like, you know, there's just so many different things. He's actually...
Wait, you have something in your tooth.
Do I? Mm-hmm. How long have I had that?
I don't know. I haven't seen it. Now. Wait.
Where?
I think it's down here. Did you get it?
Oh, no. Did I?
I think you did. It was a little black thing.
Great.
In 4K,
right
baby.
there?
No.
No? Am I good?
You're good. Also, remember, you're just talking to me. You don't have to project it on a stage.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It's okay. No, you don't have to apologize.
Okay. So, yeah. So, honestly, all the stories that he's telling me are literally like a comedy.
I mean, it is like a sitcom okay, first of all, Todd ain't playing golf in prison. No. It's not glamorous. It's not what people have made it out to be. It is a federal prison camp, which is a lower security version of some of these federal prisons.
Exactly.
But it is not like a walk in the park.
No.
Get up, like, you know,
let's go
open packages from your family with new clothes. Like it's not.
No.
Nothing like that.
No, it's not. People have made it out to be this glamorous thing.
Can barely hear the phone calls.
Exactly. That's the tough part.
Sorry, is that a bad thing to say?
No, it's true. It's like you get these phone calls and you hear every other word when that's your only form of communication. It should be a little better than that. But it's also, I think, hearing his stories, since being in there, and the people that he's met, their stories, the impact that he's had, that they've had on him, and also guys that are getting out that are now coming to me, reaching out to me saying, like, you have no idea the impact that he's made. You have no idea what he's done. Or wives saying, you have no idea what your dad's done for my husband. It's things like that that truly cause me to take a step back and be like, you know what? God's working in a gazillion different ways in this whole situation. But to hear too some of the stories that he has of just, it's hysterical, the stuff that happens in that place. Like,
can you tell any or not really?
I'm trying to think of, well, first off, like the different food that they make. Like I've said, I'm going to do segments on recipes that they tell me from in there and how they make them.
You mean like insane. To try to turn what they have into something better?
Yeah. So like they'll make
what?
Cheesecakes.
How?
Coffee creamer, like the coffee mate, like the big, it's crazy. Just the things that they make and how they then like set the cheesecake and then how they're, girl, they do it in buckets of ice. Craziest thing I've ever heard. Now keep in mind, Dad's not doing any of these things.
Well, I mean,
but people love him in there. So they, you know, they'll do stuff for him. But he's just created, like, people have such a misconception on prison and
who's there.
Who's there.
Yeah.
Like, people think, oh, it's all these terrible human beings. No, it's not. The biggest misconception. And sure, there's drug dealers, drug addicts, but there's doctors, there's lawyers, there's politicians, there's bankers.
Right.
Like, there's people from all different walks of life. And what people don't realize is they're one bad decision, one bad prosecutor, one bad judge away from being a felon themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what people don't realize.
Right.
So I just think that's the biggest misconception is it's not what everyone thinks it is, good or bad.
You can't talk about your dad's like friends.
Oh gosh, his friends. Well, it's
like the nickname. It's the nicknames for me, and then it's like picturing Todd hanging out with these like people that look and talk and act nothing like Todd.
That have literally been drug dealers, and that have,
and a lot of them not bad people. Like they were just, some people just do what they can with what they have, and you have to provide for your family. And I'm not promoting dealing drugs, but I am saying that there's a lot of people that people have characterized as immoral and awful who literally were like, I gotta feed my kids.
Yeah, who know no better.
Yeah,
literally, there's a guy that at the age of 10 was shooting heroin into people's arms because everyone else was too high to do it. Yeah, like at the age of 10 years old,
being asked by somebody
to do that because his parents were too high. And he was told that he had to deal drugs in order to have food or in order to have shoes or like at the age of 10 years old.
Yeah, you like
how do you expect anyone's life to turn out any different? And especially when we have a system that we don't help to rehabilitate these people. It's just, here you go. Oh, your release date's coming up. Here's $100, $200, whatever the dollar amount is, go to the bus stop. Good luck.
Right.
Like that's not rehabilitation, and that's not investing in these people to want a better future.
Right.
And also there's over 40,000 laws that affect felons in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, a lot of people I didn't know this until I talked to you.
Like literally in the state of Tennessee, you cannot even be a hairdresser.
Yeah, there's a ton of restrictions on people that have served any sort of federal time or have any sort of big time
criminal history. Criminal history.
I mean, everything from like if someone has a non-violent, even non-drug related crime, like being a room parent, like for your kid's school.
Oh, you can't.
Right? You can't be anywhere.
I mean, I'm going through right now to be a chaperone on Chloe's field trip. And like I have to go get fingerprinted, do all these things, and you can't have any criminal record.
Right, which we're all about protecting kids, but it does feel like there's, there's some extreme things.
I'm not here to say that like we don't need our prison system or that we don't need. I'm not here to fight for everyone's innocence.
No.
But I am saying there has to be some change implemented because for you to be a non-violent offender and not be able to go to your kid's school and volunteer or like, to me, that's just absolutely insane.
Right.
But it's, and too, one thing also, people say, we want an update on your mom. It's so hard because
Is she protecting you from like what she's dealing with?
I don't know, maybe. I mean, I think it's definitely harder on her, I think, than it is my dad. But she's just staying busy, like she's trying to do anything and everything, take classes, First Step Act, everything known to man that she can do, she does. And my mom, like, she walks in a room, if something needs to be done, like, she just starts doing it.
Oh my gosh, that's like her in a nutshell.
Yeah. And so she's trying to stay busy, her health, she's trying to focus on that. I think she's trying to shield us from a lot of things, right, because that's my mom. That's who she is. So
sounds like somebody else I know.
Yeah, right. I got to get it from somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, overall, it's not glamorous. They're both in federal prison, so it just kind of is what it is, and that's our new normal, know. And it's so hard because people are so hateful on social media. Some of the things people say are just baffling.
True. But I know that those are the ones that stick out to you, but you also, I hope you see, at least, especially on your show, like YouTube and stuff, see the support.
Oh, yeah.
I know that the ones that are like really harsh and ridiculous are always the ones you remember.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that don't feel like that.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about your mom, before we like move on from that, do you feel like, knowing your mom as much as I do, I have a feeling when you guys get in there to see her, every question is deflected outwards towards y'all?
Yeah.
Like, does she even really answer any?
Maybe
to you on the phone, but not.
Well, also too, all phone calls are recorded, so you don't get much on a phone call,
right? Not that your mom has. No,
not that there's. It's just
she just wouldn't say like She wouldn't say anything bad about like what she's going through or conditions or anything.
No, and too, it's just you have to be careful how you step. You know, like you don't want any repercussions for saying something in there, and so she just kind of sticks to herself. And we talk when I come for visitation, and we kind of just take it from there. I think what's hard, like Easter was really hard. Yeah. Because that was our first holiday.
Your dad's birthday was that weekend.
Yeah. Dad's birthday and Easter. So it was really, really difficult because mom did everything, like it was just our first holidays without them. And even dad's birthday, I would always make sure we celebrated it in a fun way. Whether it was like me taking him on a trip, just he and I, or a gift, whatever it may be. I just always made sure I celebrated it. So it was really, really difficult. And I think also looking at like his birthday and thinking, how many more birthdays are going to come?
Do you have to do that for?
Yeah. Like how many more birthdays are going to pass that like we don't get to be together? So it's tough. Like life is so short, especially when you get to the point that he's at in his life. Like he is older. So
yeah.
What's it going to look like?
Yeah. I mean, he is like young in the large scope of things, but like I know when you have this like timeline that you don't know if it's going to come down any from when we left the courtroom in Atlanta.
Because you were with me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was like, that is like an ingrained memory, but I wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere else because I would have been panicking if I had not been there to like actually see if you were good, which in the large scheme of things, were y'all good? Absolutely not. But like you were getting through it. Yeah. And the hope then was that things would come down before they were ever sent away, which thank God they weren't taken that day because we thought that was a possibility, which I don't know.
Yeah, and I've talked to a lot of people. So a lot of times when you're sentenced to the amount of time they were sentenced to, you're taken from that courtroom. And we were prepared that morning for them to be taken. I mean, they gave over all their personal belongings, and I remember standing in the first floor of that courthouse in the cafeteria area in a corner, and there was a whole legal counsel, probably 10 people literally standing there, and one of our attorneys, Alex, was like, hey, so this is probably how it's going to go down. They're probably going to take you, you'll be booked, it'll be a few days before you hear from your parents. Like he said it was going to be a brutal next 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And so that's what we were prepared for.
Were you prepared? Because I don't remember from you hearing that was gonna be the case going in. Like, did we learn something while we were in Atlanta that it might, because of the way things were looking, that they were gonna be taken? Because we didn't. I guess we did kind of know it was a possibility because we were made sure there was enough drivers for cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we did kind of know.
So I think we kind of knew it was a possibility, but then that morning it just got more real.
Right. And then at lunchtime they were like, that you need to be aware.
Yeah. Yeah. And so just we were ready for them to be taken. And so it's so hard to find the wins in really crappy situations. But looking at it now, that was a huge win.
Oh,
you know, like it's so hard for me to I can't even believe I'm saying it, but looking at our situation and our case and how things went down and the judge that presided over our case, I'm grateful for that moment that she gave us.
Yeah,
like, I'm grateful that she allowed them to self-report. I'm grateful that she didn't take them from the courtroom that day. There's a lot of things that happened during our case that, you know, in the appeals circuit, hopefully it all works out.
Yeah.
But, and I could be negative about the situation, but that's not going to do me any good.
Right.
And right now I look at it, and just the fact that my parents got to come home with us that day was such a huge win, because all the moments I got to experience with my parents between that November date to January 17th.
Yeah.
I will forever be grateful for. And that was a tough 2 months.
Because you're already arrested. I mean, like, your freedom's already gone.
Yeah.
And it's almost scarier.
All right, guys, I am loving Mudwater. You've heard this ad before, and well, we're going to talk about it again. We all know I'm not the best when it comes to, you know, saying certain words, so we're going to give it a go. But in case you haven't heard my ad before on Mudwater, Mudwater is a coffee alternative with 4 adaptogenic mushrooms and Ayurvedic herbs. With only a fraction of caffeine as a cup of coffee, you get energy without the jitters or crash of coffee. None of us love that crash, and that's where Mudwater comes into play. Each ingredient was added for a purpose: cacao and chai for mood and a hint of caffeine, lion's mane to support focus, which we all need, a few other ingredients to support physical performance and to support your immune system, and cinnamon for antioxidants. The taste is amazing. I love to drink mine with oat milk, and Mudwater is also Whole30 approved. It's 100% USDA, organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan, and kosher certified. Mudwater also donates monthly to the Berkeley Center for Science of Psychedelics, as Mudwater believes that the country is in a mental health epidemic and sees psychedelics as useful tools for individuals with depression, PTSD, anxiety, and other mental health experiences. So go to mudwater.com/unlocked to support the show and use code UNLOCKED for 15% off. That's mudwater/unlocked to support the show and use code UNLOCKED for 15% off. Unlocked is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Let's face it, sometimes multitasking can be, well, overwhelming to say the least. Like when your favorite podcast is playing and the person next to you is talking and your car fan is blasting, all while you're trying to find the perfect parking spot. But then again, sometimes multitasking is easy, like quoting with Progressive Insurance. They do the hard work of comparing rates so you can find a great rate that works for you, even if it's not with them. Give their nifty comparison tool a try, and you might just find getting the rate and coverage you deserve is easy. All you need to do is visit Progressive's website to get a quote with all the coverages you want, like comprehensive and collision coverage or personal injury protection. Then you'll see Progressive's direct rate, and their tool will provide options from other companies all lined up and ready to compare, so it's simple to choose the rate and coverages that you like. Press play on comparing auto rates. Quote at progressive.com to join the over 29 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. It is because you're like counting down the days. And I will say that Dad did a little better job living out those days than Mom. Everyone deals with it differently. Not saying his was right, hers was wrong, or vice versa. It's just he made every moment count. And I think the fear got her. She was just devastated, just having to be away from her kids, her parents who are not in great health, my dad's Nanny Faye, who's not in great health. Like, she was devastated at leaving everyone behind. So I think,
and leaving, also your mom was very well aware of how much she did. Yeah. So knowing that she was leaving you with that. And like leaving her older children to tend to all of the jobs that she did, which I'm sure, even though she would never admit it because she's Julie Chrisley, she knows how much she did on a daily basis. So I'm sure she's like, how in the world is Savannah going to be able to be the age that she is and live her life out and do all the stuff that I did?
Yeah. Well, it's crazy
be
because
happy doing it.
She actually just sent me home like 30 or 40 days worth of letters. And
why all at once?
Just because the way that it works with just mailing stuff home, she wanted to do it certified mail, so but it was just like her daily diary, basically, just
you didn't bring
journal.
Any, did you?
No, I didn't bring them. Because I'll eventually put them out, read them at some point to give people updates on kind of how they were doing and what was going through their minds. But that's kind of one of the constant themes in all of her message, like all of her letters, or I can't believe Savannah's having to do this. Like, I can't believe her life's having to be put on hold. Like, it's that. And then I don't think there's a single letter that goes by that she does not say how much she misses my dad.
Because they don't get to talk at all.
They don't get to talk. No. So it's going on, what month are we? April?
We're on month
So we're like 3 or 4.
4 months in.
Yeah, 4 months in almost. And being together almost 30 years now and not going a day without speaking to now going on 4 months is a lot. People don't talk about that, and that's the tough part is like how, and our system's already breaking people. Yeah. They are. Like, they're already breaking people, and now on top of it to try to, now you're just prohibiting communication between two people who have been married for almost 30 years. Like, what are you doing to families? How are you?
That's a question. It's like, what is this doing for, how is this protecting society to keep a husband and wife from talking?
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough.
It's hard to answer that.
It is. And I don't know. It's all just a lot. And just her letters, like I said, it was a lot to read. I mean, it was tough to see the accounts of her day and just things that she's scared of or nervous about, or just all the thoughts that go through her mind, and not having my dad there with her. That's the biggest thing. And so it's tough. But like I said, like, to the judge that was over our case, like, I will forever be grateful for the 2 months that she gave us.
Yeah,
I will forever be grateful for the 2 months that she gave us, because she could have sent them right then, and she allowed them to self-report. So that was our win in that moment. Yeah. Like, that, as bad as the situation sucked, that was our win that I'll forever be grateful for. Now, there's been, sure, now I look at it, like, there's been little wins along the way, It's, like what? Well, I mean, that was the big win, I will say. Now looking at it, I'm like, that's a big one. Also, another win is my parents being at facilities to where we can go and visit.
Yeah, because that wouldn't necessarily be the case everywhere.
It depends on the way it goes. It's like you've got super max, medium, low, minimum. So,
and these are minimum.
Yeah, so where they're at, it's at minimum. And so we're allowed to go in and hug them and hold them and spend from 8 to 3 with them, Saturday and Sunday. You don't get that. Yeah. Like, I know state works different than federal, but it depends on the security too of the prison. Like a lot of times you're sitting behind a glass wall or you're talking through a phone. Like you're not. So that for me is a win. Like I get 2 days of getting to sit and talk and hug and laugh and cry and do all the things and get advice that I would have been seeking if they were home. And so that's a win. So as sucky as the situation is, like you have to find a win or else there's going to be no way for you to get through the day.
Are you worried at all about having the longevity and the stamina to do this? I know that you will.
Yeah, I know I will get through it.
At what cost?
Yeah, like it's not sustainable, the pace that I'm at right now, but it's sustainable until my parents are home.
Yeah.
I think is how I look at it. And like my life is on hold. It's, I can't look at a relationship with someone and think, oh, I'm going to get into a serious relationship with that person. It just doesn't work that way. Like, unfortunately, as great as people may be that come along my path right now, I just can't, I don't have that emotional capacity or time to give to someone other than the kids and myself.
Have you, like, I just started digging into this in therapy because I'm like deep in it and you have been, not as much as I would like you to be. Yeah. But you've done like deep dives with places like On Site and all of these other like therapeutic things. Have you dug into like attachment style at all? I just started getting into it. So like there's avoidant, there's anxious.
Yes.
There's anxious avoidant. Am I missing any? There's different like derivations of each of those too.
Yeah, I would say mine is.
I think I know it.
What would you say mine is? Teach me.
I think you're avoidant. But you shouldn't be. But that's why you're confusing to me because you had such secure attachment with your parents.
Yeah, I don't know. This is not the attachment style, but like I'm just going to correlate this with scuba diving, okay? Like,
okay, let's see how you do that.
The deeper you get, the higher the chances are of you becoming tunnel visioned.
Yeah.
So when I'm deep in the crap, I'm just tunnel visioned on like, all right, this is where I'm at. Let's fix it.
Yeah.
So it's so easy for me to just engulf myself in everything with my parents because I want to implement change. And I know that there's 2 kids who need their parents home.
Right.
So now it's like, all right, I have to do whatever I can do in order to make a difference. So it's easy for me to not focus on my life at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that you and I talk about this quite a bit, and I don't really know where we're going with this, but I think we'll figure it out. But the hyper fixating on what has to happen is like that. I mean, there's hypervigilance is a word we've talked about a lot. Like it is oftentimes a trauma response, like things that have happened when you're younger, it could be outside of the family, it could be family oriented, whatever. And then what you do is you like constantly, I call it my lighthouse syndrome. Like I'm scanning, like I'm like, like scanning my surroundings to make sure nothing's wrong. Now, but if you turn to me at any given time, you're like, are you good? I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then someone's like, I mean, like Sean, like my closest family members, like Sean can be like, are you sure? And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe sometimes I'll feel it. But a lot of times I still will be like, no, I'm good. Yeah. But I can I feel like game recognizes game in this particular situation because if there's something going on with you, I can normally tell. Yeah. But your focus is outward. Mm-hmm. And then I think with, especially when you have dependents, then they become even more hyper focused. But like, do you know at any given time if you're good? I mean, I think sometimes if you're struggling and you can tell people, but I don't know that you always even know.
I don't know. No, I don't think I do. No.
Yeah.
If there's little moments to where, for instance, like in the car driving to see Dad this weekend, Chloe and Grayson are sitting in the back seat and they're telling me different songs to play and they're sitting next to each other and they're just like laughing and singing and cutting up. And like in that moment for a split second, I was like, okay, like we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like seeing 2 kids in the midst of their whole world falling apart, headed to see their dad in federal prison. Like they're sitting here laughing and cutting up and playing with each other. And that gave me like a little bit of hope. They're like, okay, I'm doing okay, you know? But when it comes to myself, I know that me personally in my life, this whole thing has affected how I view things so much.
Yeah.
And I think right now, maybe I'm just in like an angry, I've reached that point. What do they say? Like when you're
like the stages of grief.
Yeah. Like the stages of grief.
It's like denial, then, I don't know. Anybody else know it? Denial, then anger is not too far away from denial.
Yeah.
Someone's going to look it up.
But. Yeah. So, but I'm in that anger part of grief right now. I'm just angry at everything. And also after taking on the kids, I'm like, okay, do I actually want kids? Do I, you know, seeing how much this whole thing has affected us. No, I think that's honestly just coming from a place of anger right now.
Yeah.
And granted, I don't want anyone to take what I said out of context at all. I freaking love these two kids more than life itself.
Yes.
Like they are my everything. We have so much fun together. I make sure, like, even when going to see dad, like we went and rode go-karts and we make
not your dad.
No, not dad. No, after going,
it's not
leaving,
summer camp.
No, not summer camp. We left visitation and then we went and did this. So it's like, I love them more than life itself. I will do anything for them. I try to have as much fun as possible. I try to be a good, like, adult figure in their life. But it's really hard being 25 and having two kids and trying to figure out what's best for them. Because normally you get to grow. Like, you get to grow from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Like, you get to grow through the ages. Right. And now I'm just being, like, thrown into it.
Right.
And so and my life really is being put on hold. So I would have thought I would have been married. I would have thought I would have had kids.
Right.
But now it sucks because, you know, on Instagram, which obviously you're going to get my phone. You know, Erin's about one of the only people I trust to ever get my phone and my password.
Scary place.
There are questions that people have asked and about people I've dated and stuff like that. And I have tried to date since this whole thing. Because to me, it's like, I have to do something for myself. Like, I have to be in a good place for me and have to give myself some sort of energy. And when starting to date, it was kind of, I don't know, maybe it was like also unfair to that person because there's just a lot going on in the world. In life in general right now, it's hard to put myself first. And since I did jump back into dating and I felt like I felt guilty because I couldn't give everything in that aspect. Yeah. So I think it all kind of fell apart.
You did try.
I did try.
How much you want to talk about this?
Oh, we can talk about it as much as you want.
Are you going names?
Oh, yeah. That's fine.
Okay. So who... Okay. Get ready for the YouTube numbers. Who have you dated in the past 6 months?
I gotta go pick up Chloe from school.